Welcome to Security Weekly Unlocked and this sponsored demo by Checkmarks. I am your moderator, Matt Alderman, formerly the CEO at Security Weekly and now Executive Director at Cyber Risk Alliance. Joining me is Adam Weinrich from Checkmarks to discuss and demo how to fuel the SDLC with AppSec awareness. Adam, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Before we get into the demo, I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges when it comes to application security awareness. How do we train developers? Because, traditional once a year training that we do for other security awareness programs probably isn't enough for developers, is it?
No, not at all. Really, the idea is, well, what's going to stick? Trying to do things one-off. The retention level we've looked at, it's like less than 10%, only 30 days after a one-off training. So our program is based upon the understanding of how folks educate themselves about in general and particularly in the AppSec world.
Yeah, it doesn't stick for normal awareness programs, so I can't imagine it sticks for developers either. But what's unique about development and application security is lots of different tools, lots of different process flows. How do we try to make it relevant to their individual environment? Because every environment could be so different.
Definitely. One of the things that we do with our tools is we integrate with our products. So Checkmarks has a suite of tools. We have static analysis, we have software composition analysis, we have IAST. And one of the things you can do is integrate directly in your tool. So in our tool, I'll actually demo this where you're working in your SAST world, you find an issue and you're not sure about it, you want to be trained on it, you can immediately jump into a Codebashing training. But also we have APIs so you could integrate with your own tools, either COTS tools or your custom tools to set that up so you can get training on the topic specifically at the time that you want to. So we set that up, and we also have a program to have a wider support for AppSec initiatives for training overall.
Good. So, I think that's a good intro into the demo, because I think seeing is what will make it all come together, kind of how you set up the environment and how you engage from an awareness perspective.
Definitely. Yeah, I can actually start with that piece to kind of contextualize it, and then we'll talk about the dashboarding and the system overall.
Great.
So would you like me to start?
Yeah, let's go. Let's get in it.
Okay. So let me share my screen. Okay. You see my screen?
Yes, I see the screen.
Excellent. So what this actually is not a basic code bashing interface. This is our SAST tool. The way our SAST tool works is we scan your software project, we analyze it for unknown vulnerabilities, and we provide you assessment of them. But a lot of times developers aren't familiar with those vulnerabilities. They're not familiar with different vulnerability types. We provide some insights, but it's often not enough. If developers don't have training in their background, if they haven't gotten it in school, if they haven't gotten substantial education in it, they're not really familiar with what issues are. So, how to address certain problems. So let me kind of pull one up. Here I have a project that's web code. It's deliberately a vulnerable application, right? It's plenty of bugs in it. And you can see that as I go into it, here I get a view of code of a customer's application. This is the code. On the left here is the view of the highs and mediums and lows and the different vulnerability types. So we have command injection, reflected cross-site scripting, SQL injection, stored cross-site scripting, SPath. These are high damage vulnerabilities. These are the types of issues that can lead to an exploit that are problematic commonly, in the OWASP top 10, also some of them. And so a developer would maybe see this. They come into our tool or any other tool, and they say, well, okay, SQL injection, I don't get it. Now they can look at our tool. They say, okay, this is interesting. And if they know our UI, they can be familiar with it. This is actually what your attack vector looks like. You can use the tool to scan through and see exactly each time a data value is modified in the entire chain. So from source to sink, you can see where the SQL query is generated and observe it. But let's say you're not sure what that means. Well, we have an explanation here. We have text. It provides you with detail exactly what's happening. But often that's not enough. You say, okay, this particular application executes a SQL query on a particular line. The data came in here. So you get it, but you don't get enough. So, okay, now maybe.
And Adam, I think this is one of the big challenges in the industry, right? When we say, okay, this application has SQL injection, the fixer of it is the developer. If the developer doesn't understand what SQL injection is or how to fix it, they're kind of stuck, and it creates this friction between the security and the development teams. And what you're trying to do is remove some of that friction by trying to educate them a little better on, maybe how to fix it or what the root cause is, so that they're in a better position to fix it.
Exactly. And most tools will offer some type of guidance, right? It's normal that you'll provide some insights, maybe a link into the CWE, some details, just like we do. You can click a button here. I just clicked on a little question mark, and it comes through. We give you a nice description specifically of, in the language you're working in, of an example of how this vulnerability works and how to fix it. And this is often helpful. Often this is enough. But the developers are still winging it, right? They might even do this and kind of learn something in the process, but they're not really truly understanding, well, what is cross-site scripting? How does it work? And you'll see throughout, you've got this little link here. This is part of our Codebashing integration. So if you click on this, you can learn immediately about SQL injection, if this isn't enough. So you click on it, and actually it's going out. Now this is going out to the website where we serve up our education platform. And essentially what you get is a context-specific, just-in-time gamified platform. And it's something that's usable. So here you have a character, the good guy, the developer Alice, and then you have a bad guy, Bob, who's trying to break into the application. And it's made to be something that's consumable in less than 10 minutes, but not superficial and not just text, not just dry. So you come in and what you're presented with is some activities. You get a web browser here, and basically you're going through a simulation of what a real world SQL injection experience might be like, and provides insights for the developer to understand how it relates to what their work is, what their code is actually doing, and how a SQL injection could attack their code. So we describes here the vulnerable application, trade portal, how it works, how you have to register users, and it's getting input, it's processing that input. The question is, how does that relate to a SQL injection? So you come in there, you see that, okay, there's going to be a log here. So this is going to tell you what's happening in the background. It's going to tell you and enter some credentials. So I can come in and give the details that I'm instructed to give for Alice. And
so you kind of walk them through. You walk them through kind of what to enter in these steps, so they know exactly how this kind of propagates.
Exactly. Now this is interesting because I'm running it in a new browser. Actually, Chrome is getting smart on me and trying to teach me about vulnerabilities, because security needs to be everywhere, everywhere. So what we're seeing though is I entered the information as described, and it's telling me, well, look, in the live log, this is what the SQL call looks like. This is what happened when you, just like in the application, we are concatenated some text that came in. The username is inserted here, and the password that I entered was here, and you can see what the text looks like. Well, that's that's interesting. It teaches me a little bit about what's going on, but I don't necessarily understand fully. So then it's giving me another example. It's saying, well, why don't you try doing this, adding a single quote character? Okay. Well, you might say, well, what does that have to do with anything? Single quote character. But the fact is that a single quote character actually has special meaning in terms of parsing text and what it'll do to a string concatenation process. So here on the website, on the application side, you're going to see that there's actually an error. So the user is going to see an error. They're going to, oh, that's interesting. That is also going to be an indication for a black hat hacker. They're going to say, wait, look at that. What caused a problem here? That there's the weakness in this system. It doesn't handle it gracefully. Now they're going to probably understand what they did, right? Because they already put in that quote mark. So you can see that what it did was it generated the error here by using two quotes, and there's a parsing error. So it gives you details about it. And remember, we're in the mindset of the developer who just jumped into this. So the developer wants to understand, well, what's going on? How does this relate to my code? So Alice goes through, she explains exactly how the input is made, and this is very similar to the vast majority of SQL injections. It explains particularly what happens. Text data is inputted, usually through a web form of some sort. It's processed, usually concatenated using string functionalities, and then it's sent off to your SQL parser, right, to access your database. And so it's very common, the same idea, but in this particular situation, we found a way to attack it. We have an attack vector. So then you can go in and it tells you how to analyze the portal's actions. So we're going through it again, and it goes through the details. So here we're breaking it down very simply exactly what happens, what the logic was for the authentication. So as you can see, this is the kind of idea. We can dig through specific, I'll go through quickly, but you understand that it describes exactly what Alice is learning, how the experience looks to the hacker, and what a vulnerability and an attack might look like. So here, let's kind of do something a little more. As she said, now try logging in with a password followed by two single quotes. So let's see, and now you can see I'm entering it. Is that going to work? Okay, Alice 1 2 3 apostrophe, and then Alice 1 2 3. Okay, so I get the error again. Now I go back to login. I go through. I see the code, and this is basically the steps. To duplicate the error. Why am I not getting one of these? Let's see, Alice 1 2 3. Okay, so as you go through and you understand the different steps, you go through an exercise, and then you can go just directly back to view what you need to understand. You have you go back into your code, and then you can repair it very quickly. So say, okay, I learned how this works. I'm going to go back up, follow the path through my application, and it was going to teach me exactly the problem. So here, when we create the query and we create the concatenation, we're going to fix that like Alice is going to fix it. So we go back to Codebashing. I'm going to see exactly why they're not getting me. Alice 1 2 3. Okay, so here, then it's explained to me exactly how we specify what we specified and how you can break this. So let me actually continue back for just a second, because that'll get us to remediation. So Now that we know that there's ways to mess with things using apostrophes, here I'm going to use a logical statement that any hacker is going to know, that you're going to say if you throw in the quote, and then you're going to end, or if 1 equals 1. And that's a way to say if it's always true. So basically what we're saying is add some logic that's going to confuse the parser and going to break the system. And now you've got
So you didn't even have to enter the password. What you created was an escape character that allowed you to set a true value in the database that got returned and let you in and completely bypassed the password authentication.
Exactly. And so that's what a hacker would often do, because this is a known approach to breaching with a vulnerability that that uses SQL injection, and that's pretty much the process a hacker would take. They'd mess with it, they'd enter a few different things, see how it works, and now if Alice doesn't know about this, now she's learning. Now she's saying, this makes sense. I fully see how a hack works. And she goes through and she says, okay, how it's working. And here, here they're using a new method, so you can use a get parameter. So in this call, they're calling the parameters again, like we saw, but now we want to figure out how to switch it. How do we fix the SQL injection? Because Alice needs to learn how to do this. So she's going to use a prepared statement. So she's going to go, aha, this is what they're doing. They're bypassing the idea of just concatenation with that whole quotes and logical statements that are going to be interpreted by the SQL parser, and they're going to use a methodology that's more secure. So,
right. So you parameterize the inputs. That way you can pass them to a prepared statement. That way your SQL call is always in the appropriate format instead of allowing a parameter to be bypassed, like the password in the previous example.
Exactly. So Alice is learning this. I mean, that's what's important. So it's explaining to her exactly how the prepared statement works, and she understands fully what's happening. And this is pretty quick, right? And then you can go through a review exercise, different ways to just to make sure that you understand, Alice understands what's going on, and she can have a full assessment and get more information about it. So here you end the lesson. You can go back, Alex. Cool. I'm going to use parameterized queries. I'm going to fix the concatenation, and this is how I'm going to fix my application. From a developer perspective,
it was self-service, right? I mean, it was like right in the context of the error they saw. They could go right to Codebashing, do a little session, right? We've been maybe 10, 12 minutes in, kind of ran that little module as it was relevant to come back, fix the code. And I assume, Adam, there's a ton of modules here. So there's probably dozens of modules on all the different potential vulnerabilities in the code.
Exactly. So contextually, as you're going through, you can click on any different one, and it will bring up the next step. So what you want to do is, be connected to. You configure Codebashing to work with the IDE you're in. Right, so this is the tool. It's integrated here, but we also have Visual Studio integration, Eclipse, and in that also, like we mentioned, in your tool, you can hook it up so that you'll share the language you're using, you'll share the vulnerability type, and then you'll be directed back up to Codebashing and get a contextual lesson, just like that, 10 minutes, then you're good.
Yeah. Now, as you're doing modules, is it also tracking your progress on all these different learning modules in Codebashing to kind of give you an overview of kind of which ones you've done, how many are left? Maybe it creates more of a kind of a self-service training mechanism as well.
Exactly. So there are a variety of ways to use Codebashing. Here is the dashboard. So this is a system manager dashboard, enterprise manager dashboard. So taking a big step back, if you want to have an AppSec awareness program, you need to manage the entire enterprise. You need to manage the the touch points for security across your organization. You need your stakeholders to be involved. So from a securities perspective, they're going to want different teams to be trained up at specific levels for their expectations. And on each, it can be managed by security or development manager. So you can come in and you can set up the specific teams. You specify the developers on that team, what the expectation is for that team. You set up particular courses, so you can assign courses to a team, and or the activities that they're already integrated with, linked into their contextual application. And then you have these assessments. You already have analytics for each individual. So you can have specific details for each user, understand where their strengths and their weaknesses are, understand what they've been trained in versus what they haven't been trained in, do this across your users, across your teams. In a tool like what I showed you with static analysis, let's say you found that you had numerous cross-site scripting issues across your tool. You say, well, statistically speaking, it looks like, we need to learn about this. Well, we could do a brown bag lunch, and not the days of COVID, it's a little difficult, right? Or you can do a tournament or an activity. You can assign to your team to participate in a training exercise, and everything that they integrate with, whether it's contextual from their learning during their development, or being assigned an activity through the portal for their team, they're going to be assigned an exercise. So you come in, and here you have different activities, assessments for different team. You can specify them. So this is more of okay, what do we know, right? What we don't know, what we don't know. So let's come in, and you can assign different activities for a team, a subset of vulnerability types, let's say, and say, how good are we doing? And then you can provide that. That's important in like the PCI world, compliance world, to show that not only do you have training, but your training is successful. You're taking it to another level. You can't really succeed with anything unless you can measure it, right? You can't know that you're successful if you can't measure your success. So here you can get accurate understanding of your developer progress. Now that's not always that fun, right? It goes back to that idea of how do we train folks that it's not just a dry setup and then we're quizzing them. Nobody likes that. So you can make it fun by doing things like having tournaments. You can set up nice, cute little challenges, right? You set up an activity that you're going to have a tournament amongst your colleagues, and you're going to assign them. I already set up like one tournament here. So you can set up the activity and you start it, and then you'll go through, and each person you're going to have certain subset of time, that okay, let's, and this is active. This is from the, the dashboard perspective, but a user is going to see, they're going to see, they'll get an email, that either you're getting an assessment, and giving them their own, the status. And so it makes it fun, and it's short term. And then you can go to your colleagues and say, hey, I knew that and you didn't. Hey, I'm going to figure that out. And it makes, we do it all the time. And it's, it's something that isn't dry. It makes it, just enjoyable, not a big deal, along with assigned courses, along with contextual training.
Yeah.
And you can get badges, you can get awards.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, right? When you gamify it, what kind of leaderboard, what kind of badges, what kind of other things do you integrate into Codebashing? Because now it's like, look how many badges I've earned, right? It becomes kind of a pride thing.
Yes, and so depending on who, each user is going to, I'm not sure, depending on the team, you can see what badges a user has. So here you can come in and you see the badges that these guys have earned. It's grayed out at the moment, but the idea is they've gone through this. They've either won a tournament or completed a lesson or done an assessment. So they earn various badges, making it fun. Again, making it something that's not just a dry activity. It's not just rote. But it hits from a different angles. Because again, going back to that idea of how does education work? How do we learn? What is the cognitive process, particularly across a culture? You need to consistently communicate and consistently touch upon learning in ways that it sticks. The way
Yeah.
it's absorbed and it makes sense, for everyone. And that's why the AppSec enablement concept as a platform, is so key to code bashing. So this is all the dashboard side, right? We saw the developer experience might be a little different, but we also have things like, just from a cultural perspective, you're going to want to. It might seem simple and foolish, but you have to communicate. You have to touch point. You have to remind folks that security is an everyday job. It is your job. Every developer needs to know that they own security. And so by communicating, you can automate messages not spam, right? But every few weeks, send off a message, send off an activity, communicate with them. You can customize this if you're doing a program internally. If there's anything, you can mix it with your corporate requirements for security and add additional context for their training, so that it's all in one place. And the communications process makes sense. Here it's in French. I think we've got a few. So you can really customize this, and there's numerous templates here, right? So various ways to just touch the developers. You can send off a broadcast to a subset, a team, just to keep the communications going, and to know that you have a system in place to really address this, the entire corporate culture, and manage it and view it, and again, control it, measure it. It's a kind of a centralized place for engaging application security training.
How easy is it to set up? Is it directly integrated already into the existing Checkmarx products, and therefore it's already there? What kind of setups required to get code bashing fully enabled?
So code bashing itself, this interface and the actual courses are provided in kind of a SaaS model. They're all online. So you're going to just have logins. It can integrate with your normal authentication authorization system, and then it's like everyone can use that. So there's no setup for that. In our tools, as I said, we have it pre-integrated. So you can use it from within our tools. You can customize your tools using our APIs, so that you can use it directly from there. And you can always access it just like I am using a web browser. So you can always jump into it.
Yeah, sounds pretty easy to get set up and running, especially if you're already a Checkmarx customer, right? It's already integrated in.
Exactly. So a lot of Checkmarx customers, they'll say, okay, well, what is this code bashing button? So we keep it on, They go, darn, It's not working. And it's not that expensive. It's worthwhile, but it is a entire platform. So it's not just, a separate, tool, just for training.
Adam, thank you so much. This is a great overview.
Excellent. And I just wanted, I don't know how much time we have left. I wanted to make sure you see the variety of courses we have. We break them down by language and vulnerability categories for the vast majority of them. And then we also break down for assessments of beginners and for advanced users. But in each language, you can choose for context what you work in, what training you're going to want. And we continuously add more courses all the time, to stay up with the latest technologies and the latest vulnerabilities, that kind of thing. Particularly different language changes.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Adam.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff in the knowledge center. So at the end of this session, you'll be redirected to the knowledge center. So please feel free to download their ebook or other resources. If anyone's wants to ask questions, please join our Discord server and get connected directly with Checkmarks. They can answer any questions for you. You can also visit securityweekly.com/checkmarks to learn more. I'd like to thank everyone for attending Security Weekly Unlocked.